Okay, well, welcome to our second Vision Gathering Luncheon. This is an opportunity for us to kind of share what we're thinking about where we're going with the generosity campaign, for you to ask questions and maybe even to offer some insight. I will tell you, we had a great turnout on Sunday, about 75 total. That included some of the kids that obviously were not in here for the discussion, but they were here nonetheless, and had great feedback, great interaction. And I think the group that walked out of here on Sunday walked out with a lot of excitement about where we are and where we're going. And so I want to just kind of give you an overview, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and we'll get the conversation started. So for us to be where we are right now as a church, I look back over the last 18 months or so, and it can only be explained as God is up to something. Just the way that different things have worked out. As we tried to sell the parking lot, and that kind of fell through. If we had gone through with that sale, we would have had money in the bank right now, but we probably would have been forever at odds with our neighborhood association. And that would not have been good, because that's why we exist, is for the neighborhood. And so, God kind of worked all through that, and now we have a new buyer who's coming through that the neighborhood is excited about. It's kind of cemented a partnership between us and the neighborhood association to the point that they are meeting regularly on our campus, and we do not expect that to change. They are going to have a community garden behind the playground area out here across the street in our parking lot. There'll be a community garden that the neighborhood will have. And we have some opportunities even going beyond that to do not only ministry to the neighborhood, but ministry with the neighborhood. And there's some things that are in the works there that I think will be really exciting and will be game changers for not only Huffman Baptist Church, but the neighborhood going forward. That being said, what that means is that we have about $500,000 that's going to be coming through here in the next 6 months that will enable us to reestablish our reserve accounts. We like having that cushion there. Because we know that we're in this 5-year on-ramp for us to get to a growth mode where we are actually bringing in the kind of income from membership that will sustain the church at the level where we end up being. And so we need those reserves that are there to help us get to that point and to put us in a position that if something happens, let's say air conditioning unit goes out and we are not yet at a point with the generosity campaign that we can replace that unit, that we will have money that will be available, that we can address those situations as they come up. So wanted to address that because somebody had asked me earlier, well, how does the money from the sale of the parking lot factor into the generosity campaign? That goes to replenish our reserves. So then you have this wonderful flood, right, that comes through and forces us to focus our attention on the first floor fellowship hall office building and the parlor, or the room formerly known as the parlor, and the hallway that goes with it. And hopefully insurance will pay for everything that needs to be done in these spaces that is flood related, which leaves us with the other stuff that we want to do that will be enhanced by this forward generosity campaign. So let me ask you a question. When you think about our facility, what is the greatest deficit that we have? Besides the fact that it's old. We can't get around that one. It is old. It is what it is. What is the greatest deficit that we have? Maintenance. Okay. What else? Plumbing. What else?
It's working well today, but heating and air isn't working.
Which all of those fall under the category of it's old. and it is what it is, isn't it? I want you to imagine that you are a guest and you show up here for the very first time. You know nothing about Huffman Baptist Church. You've never been inside the building. What do you do? What door do you go in? When you walk in that door, where do you go from there? See, we all know where we're going, right? We park in the same parking space every week. We walk through the same door every week. We walk down the same hall every week. We ride up the same elevator every week. We get out, we get a cup of coffee at the little coffee station every week, and then we go into our classrooms and we fellowship with one another until time for Sunday school teaching to get started. From the standpoint of ministry, the greatest deficit that we have as a church right now, when you think about our facility, is our largest and most expensive discipleship tool. And that's all a building is. It's a tool, right? It's a tool for us to accomplish discipleship, which discipleship is gathering, growing, and going. It is who we say that we are. We gather for worship and fellowship. We grow together in God's Word, becoming more like Christ, and then we go to make Jesus known. The building facility is our biggest and most expensive discipleship tool. So when you think about building as a discipleship tool, how do we stand on classrooms? We got a bunch of them, don't we? So we're in good shape in terms of classroom space. Now, some of it may not be configured exactly the way it needs to be for church in the 21st century, but those are minor adjustments that can be made. It may not have the best paint, it may not have the best carpet, it may not have air conditioning that's reliable or heating that's reliable, but we're good on classroom space. I would submit to you that our greatest deficit as a church is gathering space / a ministry hub. You might call it a welcome center. A place that is clearly identified that on a Sunday morning, if somebody shows up in our parking lot for the very first time, it is clearly identified that's where I'm supposed to go. You think about the number of doors. Say if somebody parks in the north parking lot, there are 2 doors that they are looking at. Of course, that won't be an issue after Jax is up there, but for right now, it's an issue. There are 2 doors on that side. One of them goes into the building that Kingdom Family worships in, and then the other one is locked on Sunday mornings. Most people park either across the street here or across the street there. Well, if you park across the street there, you look at the building, you're probably going to come in through the worship center. Getting from the worship center, let's say you walk in through the worship center and you have children. What do you do then? Well, whoever's in the worship center lobby is probably going to point down here and say, go out through the worship center, go out that door, take a left, go down those stairs, and then you get to the bottom of those stairs, take a right, and you're into the children's building. Well, if they don't get lost, which is highly likely, then they might make it down there. But if we had a spot, let's say through here, where we have it marked as a welcome center, we made it a big deal that this is where you start. This is the door you come in. If you don't know where you're going, come in here. And they were to walk into that space. What if we had a room that was large enough that it was very welcoming, that it was clearly identified as a welcome center, that there were people there who were able to find out, okay, you're a young family with children. Did someone invite you to come here? How did you find out about Huffman? Well, no, nobody invited me here. I saw the church and I wanted to come. And y'all got cars in the parking lot, so obviously things were happening. So I wanted to come here. I said, okay, well, you got your young family with children. We're going to walk you to your space. But because we walked in this space out here where our welcome center is, it is clear that you can get to anywhere on our campus from that one spot. And it's a matter of walking a few steps to your left or your right, and a few more steps to your left or right, depending on which hallway you're going down. And that becomes kind of a center. You need to go to the worship center? Do you need the elevator? Okay, go down here. You're going to take a left, get on the elevator, get off on the second floor. Just going to turn around and walk directly into the worship center. That then becomes space that is available as a hub for everything that takes place. Everything on our campus then is about the same distance from that space on the first floor and on the second floor. And so it becomes a space for us to be able to welcome people in and then to send them to wherever it is that they are going on the campus on Sunday morning. But it would also be true for a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. And for those of you who volunteer, we have several of our volunteers in the room this morning, you know that there's quite a bit of traffic through here during the week. And so that then becomes space that is comfortable, that is available. On Sunday morning, I can envision us having that space where we would be able to have coffee and donuts or something else that would rotate maybe on a weekly basis so that it becomes kind of church hangout space before Sunday school. We have great fellowship in our Sunday school classes. The problem is our Sunday school classes don't do a whole lot of interacting with other Sunday school classes. And so it kind of gives us a silo effect. In fact, there were several weeks before some of our classes even realized that we had a young adult class, because our young adults meet in the children's building, so they're close to their kids, and they don't necessarily end up upstairs where some of our other adult classes are. But if we had a spot where we kind of all started at the beginning and we had fellowship one with another, we could get here early and then you could end up going to your class. And imagine if a guest walks in and there's a whole bunch of people in this room and they're milling around enjoying each other's company, drinking coffee, eating a donut, just having conversation with one another. A guest walks into that space and they go, wow, this is a church that has fellowship. They enjoy one another. And so it just becomes kind of that great space that we'll be able to share together. If you look inside of your brochure, you will see that there are 4 pictures that kind of depict what that space might look like. This is an example. It is not what it will be. Several months ago, when Susie's mother passed away, a few of us drove up for the funeral and for the visitation. And I walked in the doors at First Baptist Hayden, which, by the way, those pictures are First Baptist Hayden. I walked in the doors of their welcome center and I went, this is it. This is what we need here. So that's kind of the space that we're looking at primarily when we're thinking about the space in the O building. That is to me, that is our greatest ministry deficit when we think about our facility, is having a space where we can share fellowship, where we gather together, where it serves as a ministry hub to send guests to different spots in our building so that people don't end up wandering around here getting lost, and then we find them on Monday morning and they've been like, we didn't know how to get out. Has that ever happened, Pat? I think y'all actually did find somebody in the building on a Monday before that wasn't necessarily supposed to be in the building on the night. But it kind of gives us a way to be able to do that. So now what I want us to do is we think about the generosity campaign. I want us to walk through from this end of the building to that end of the building and talk about what it is that we are thinking about doing. Okay? And then we'll kind of get your input on that. So let's start with the wonderful, fabulous, incredible bathrooms that we have back here. Anybody be in favor of us doing some things to modernize and upgrade and make those things actually something that you would be proud to send somebody to? Okay. What we want to do is every bathroom on the first floor to have it modernized. And every bathroom then in the A building to be modernized. It's not a lot of expense involved with that because you're not necessarily talking about changing out plumbing. There might be some plumbing change out we need back here, but a lot of it is just going to be cosmetic. But it will make a huge difference in the way that we feel, the way that the rooms appear, those kinds of things. So that's one of the priorities as we look at going forward, is getting the bathroom situation where it needs to be. All right? Now we're in this room. We were blessed in that Rodney had just waxed these floors. Therefore, water did not penetrate this tile. Some might say, well, I wish it had, so we could have got the tile pulled up, could replace it with something a little fresher. Well, we may still be able to do that. Kind of thinking through this, as we've looked at this room, as we've talked to a couple of contractors that we've walked through this space with, and kind of sharing what we would like to see happen in here. My goal for this room is to turn it into a room that looks less institutional and more church fellowship hall. Okay? So just kind of thinking through what that means. Obviously, we got to come back and replace where they've had to cut out sheetrock. There's some things inside the kitchen, some specialized walls in there that are moisture barriers, that those are going to have to be replaced, one of them in particular, because it had water behind it that came in through this side, and they had to take that out in order to allow it all to dry. That will have to be replaced. We will likely remove all of the accordion doors in this room so that it opens up the space. If we do need to close off space, we can get different kinds of barrier screens that will do that are less institutional, and 1950s is institutional at that. And then one of the things that I would like to do, if you look over this direction, that is our maintenance staff's office, where they kind of operate out of. It's got the time clock, it's got the message board that we communicate with them about different things that are happening. One of the contractors we talked to, I said, what if we put up just a wall, just a wall between those two columns, so that kind of was behind the door, behind the wall, it kind of becomes their space. And when we're in here having a function, we're not having to cover up space. It is good fellowship space. And so, that's almost nothing to do that. I would like for us to even put a wall that connects this wall that was added a few years ago, where we have our drink serving line all the way to by the door, so that if you're in the room, your attention is focused this way. When you walk in, you don't see where the sausage is made back behind that wall. And it still leaves all of this open for people to come through the serving line, out, get your drinks, and still come in. So I'm the only one right now that can see back there. But if you're sitting in one of these back tables, if you look to your left, you can see back through those doors. It will just give us a little more, privacy is not the right word, but a little more separation from the serving area and the kitchen area and the fellowship space. All right, so that's this room. We walk out the doors. We have been told that we have approval to remove all the ceramic tile from the connecting to the children's building all the way down to where the A building connects. So we have approval to remove and replace the ceramic tile. We will likely replace that with either carpet squares, industrial carpet squares, or with some kind of luxury vinyl plank, fake wood type flooring. One of those two. That will be going down that way. So we keep going down that hallway, and if you're familiar with it, my office is on the right. How many of you have been in my office before? Okay. If you're familiar with the way that office is constructed, when you walk in, you are in what used to be the pastor's ministry assistant's office. Now it is kind of unuseful. It's not unusable. Right now it's unusable. Normally it's just unuseful space. It's just kind of a sitting area. Then there are walls, and you have a conference room, and then you turn right down one hall and you go into my study area. Those walls have had to be cut at a 2-foot mark because they had water. Actually, I think those are 18-inch marks because the water didn't get up that high. Rather than go in and replace that and try to match it and do all of that, we're going to take those walls down. So when you walk into that space, it will be open space except for the doorway and the concrete wall that separates that space from the pastor's study. So in that space, we will have a conference table. We'll have kind of a coffee serving area that will be kind of tied toward where the bathroom is. Which, by the way, that's a first floor bathroom, so it gets redone as well. And my wife will be more thankful for that than I am because she uses it on Sunday mornings. And right now the paint's flaking off the walls and it's kind of scary in there. But anyway, so there will be also kind of a sitting area in there that will be comfortable. So if you were to come and say, Pastor, I need to talk to you, then that's the area where we would sit and have a conversation about whatever it is that was on your mind and on your heart. Very little cost involved with that because you're tearing down, not necessarily replacing stuff. So that will take place in that space. Then we step out and we are into the Welcome Center area. So the thinking is this: if it is structurally doable, all of the space when you first walk in the door to your right, where the glass Welcome Center is, where the big dining room table was, then you have the administrative office suite, all the way to the wall of the A building. If it is possible, structurally, that will all be wiped out. It will be completely open space from the wall on this side of the hallway to the outside wall. Be completely open space, Welcome Center, coffee bar, mission focus wall, a place where there'll be high top tables, there'll be comfortable furniture like what you see in the brochure. That's where we're thinking for that space. So it's great for ministry hub space and gathering space on Sunday mornings. But think about it this way. It also then opens a door to our neighborhood. Let's say that there's a group of ladies who want to get together on a Tuesday morning and just have a cup of coffee and have a conversation with each other. Well, there's really not that kind of space anywhere in this neighborhood, is there? We would all get in a car and go to Edgar's or to Starbucks or something like that. But this gives us another ministry tool to open the door to our neighborhood to say, hey, if you want to, this is space that's open during the week. Just come and hang out if you want to do that. Because we'll have people here. And it'll just be another way for us to interact. So that's that space. On this side of the hallway where our volunteers were sitting at the counter, that will probably be turned into another office that will be closed off. Be another office space there. We're going to lose some office space obviously on this side and some storage space. So we'll come on this side and try to recreate that. How many of you have ever been in the workroom area? All right, the thinking there is that if you walk in there, if you walk in where the copy machine is, and then you turn down this little hallway, and off that hallway there are 4 cubicle type offices. They have glass walls. Those walls are not load bearing except for in one spot there's a column. The thinking is that we bring those walls out to where the hallway narrows, which gives a little bit more width on those 2 offices on this side, which then they become very usable offices for ministerial staff. And then the other 2 offices, one was where our computer equipment is now, it would become kind of the central workroom, and then the other office is still available as a cubicle type office. Putting a receptionist on either end of that hallway so that we kind of create an office suite on this side of the hall, and you have open gathering space on that side of the hall. Does that make sense? Again, these are all fairly minimal when you talk about cost. Obviously, we'll be upgrading lighting, we'll be upgrading some other things as we make our way through, but all of those things will happen. Then we go into the room formerly known as the parlor. Parlors were great for the time period that they were built. When you had ladies' teas and you had all of these different things that happened around that kind of experience in that kind of room. I shared with the group on Sunday, but the interesting thing about that is I did not have a key to that room until COVID. It was the ladies' room. The ladies, we used to say the church ladies controlled that room. And I didn't want a key to it. Coming where we are now and where we're going, there is a greater need for true multi-use space. For instance, while we are in here this morning, Banks Academy had lunch in the parlor. Oh yeah, by the way, the insurance adjuster included totally redoing the kitchen in his report. So we'll get a new kitchen down there out of all this as well. So what? Not appliances. We'll have to buy that. But all the cabinetry, and so that'll be a bonus as well. The furniture that was in the parlor, we did not get it up off the ground before the floodwaters came in, and so it was all condemned. It has already been cataloged, and we have a couple of our ladies who are working, Lynn Rush and Lori Rogers, are putting values to those pieces of furniture, and then that will be submitted to the insurance company, and we will be reimbursed for those. We will not be replacing that furniture with like furniture because that will not fit the use of that room going forward. But if we needed to have a tea or we needed to have something, it would be easily decorated and could be used for that. This room might even become more conducive with the upgrades that we do in this room. It gives us a lot of flexibility in that kind of space. Probably we'll be looking at replacing the HVAC unit in the parlor. It's about on its last leg. So that probably will be happening in this phase as well. Then the other bathrooms on the second and third floors of the A building, done to them the same thing done on the first floor of the A building. So that's kind of the overhead view of the primary area that we're looking at in this first phase. That will be covered with insurance proceeds as well as the proceeds from the generosity campaign. Just a couple of other things to hit on that as you look at the immediate needs part of your brochure. It's not as high of a priority as the others, but we do want to address the entrances both to the children's building and the Welcome Center area, just to kind of spruce them up a little bit and make them a little more modern looking. Obviously, interior and exterior signage needs to be changed to match what we're actually doing. And then one thing that we can't get away from, we hope we can run from it for another year, but the boiler right over there has got to be replaced. It's original equipment, if I'm not mistaken, which means 1954, something like that. So it has served us well for 70, almost 80 years. That's pretty good. We think we can live through one more season, but that's going to have to be addressed at some point. Let me stop there. We won't go into future needs because at some point we will be looking at doing probably another one of these, that maybe 3 years from now, 5 years from now. But let me stop, see if you have questions, comments. What are your thoughts about what we just shared? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's all about it. I think it's going to be wonderful. But when you're talking about taking down the whole space going in the A building, that old bathroom, is that going to be taken down? It seems like it could be in that area if we just want to open it up.
Probably, if it's, our thought is if it can come down, we want it to come down. Anything that can come down, we want to come down. Because the other bathrooms are just right around you really don't lose anything. Those bathrooms are just right around the corner.
And I guess the window treatment's already up there too.
That's another thing. If you stand out there looking at the building from the outside, there are 3 different variations of windows on that side of the building on the first floor. We want all of those to be the same. So if you're looking at the building from the parking lot across the street, there's a consistency from this room to this room to this room to this room of the windows.
I wonder about the version in the living area. We would have stuff like this in there, or
Look, if you look at the brochure, the pictures that you see, let me see which one it is. You look at the second picture that has those tables with chairs, and then if you look at the bottom picture, it gives you another viewpoint.
So it's got some stuff.
It's probably gonna be like a seating area.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Yeah, it's just the furniture would probably be a little bit more modern and not quite like what was in the park. But yeah, I would think, one thing, it's sort of a coffee house kind of feel. It's sort of what we're going for.
sounds good.
Great questions. Yes, ma'am.
If the one is worth, how long will we write books for Exhibition Park at getting in?
And that is that LVT.
Much easier to keep.
Other questions?
The actual Welcome Center office, my understanding is that indention, that's gonna kind of go away. That's gonna be taken up by new office space.
That will be, that's the thinking. There's a big if to that. If we are able to take down the wall on the east side of that hallway, if that wall has to stay, we may not have enough room width-wise to fit a welcome center in the right space as someone comes in from the outside, and we may have to then use that space as a welcome center, but it will not be, it'll be a little more open than it
But
was.
the first choice would be
So
to
that-
have like
that-
a, sort of almost like you would think a bar, like a kitchen.
Yeah, which would be probably in front of that wall. So it's
Right.
centered, when you first walk in the door, that is the very first thing you see, is what is equivalent of the first picture there at the top. Yes, ma'am.
How much of the change on making down your first floor be paid for by the insurance after?
We don't know for sure. Because we don't have prices yet on, because part of it is we don't know if that wall can come down. That really changes a lot of the dynamics of what can and can't happen. But I would expect a half to 2/3 or 3/4 would be paid with insurance proceeds.
And do we wait until we have money in the generosity fund?
So here's the balance point with this. We have already gotten the first payout from the insurance company. We can only proceed so far. Let me back up. The way that works is we have replacement cost insurance, which means they have to pay us to put it back the way that it was. But all insurance companies do this. So our initial was $275,000. It's going to be more than that, because that did not include some of the stuff that later got included into the claim. But that's the putting it back the way it's supposed to be, $275,000. They don't write us a check for $275,000. They wrote us a check for $202,000, which is their estimate of the depreciated value. And what insurance companies are hoping that you will do is take that money and just say, we got $200,000, and not go back to them for the difference. So we can only go so far, though, until campaign money starts to come in significantly. We're not going to borrow money, at least at this point, and we don't have other money that we can use to go forward. So we can only go so far as we have money to do. So we'll be having to look at this and say, well, we can do this area for this amount of money. There'll be a lot of prioritizing, a lot of decisions that will have to be made so that we stay within our means.
this mean I'm gonna have to give up the decorating?
We may find someplace else for you to decorate. These are all excellent questions. You know, I would love to get on the other side of this and to have everything done on the first floor that we want done paid for, and still have a few $100,000 in the bank from the campaign that enables us that if we do have an error, I think I mentioned this in the sermon Sunday morning, it would be great for us to get to a point where we don't wait for a unit to give out before we replace it, that we begin replacing stuff because there's an efficiency there. No more repair costs, or at least not on the level that we have right now. Better energy efficiency with newer units. So for us to get to a point where we can begin even making some of the more long-term kinds of decisions and changes that need to be made, that would be ideal. We do also have access to the next generation, which was the previous campaign that you guys did 25 years ago, whenever that was. We have access to that money that's left. It's about $70,000, I think, that will roll into this project as well. So one of the things Bill's asking about, the giving part of this, and I'm going to say to you, if you've already begun thinking and you think you've got kind of a figure in your mind, hold on to that figure loosely until we get through the whole campaign, and because we'll have a commitment Sunday on October the 8th. And leading up to that commitment Sunday, going to continue to preach on it on Sunday mornings. We're going to continue to have 40 days of prayer. You just continue to say, Lord, you've given me kind of a figure. Is that the figure you want from me, my commitment to be going forward? I'll give you kind of where we are in our family. We paid off a car this past year. And normally, it's the car Melanie drives. It's a 2010, and it's got almost 250,000 miles on it. And so normally we would drive that car for about another year or two and then get closer to mine being paid off, and then we would buy another car. We're going to delay, unless just it quits and we don't have a choice. The money that we would have spent on that car payment is going to be kind of our starting figure for what we're going to do as our monthly commitment to the campaign for the next 3 years. I have also done something else, and I would encourage you to do this. We have the opportunity to enter into an arrangement with the Baptist Foundation of Alabama and a company called Philanthrocorp. Philanthrocorp is a company out of Denver, Colorado that helps people think through their estate planning. It's a non-invasive process. I've already gone through it. I was the guinea pig to see if it was something I wanted to bring to the church for us to do and to give you that opportunity. But they just ask, so number one, what is your heart? What do you want to do with your estate? If you could do, or do you want to leave your kids everything you have? Do you want to do things philanthropically for other organizations? What are your goals? What are your desires? And then they help you think through kind of all your different buckets that you have. I had more of an estate than I thought, because I jokingly told the guy, I said, the only thing I got in my estate is I'm leaving my kids a bunch of bills. That's it. And he laughed and he said, there's probably more there than you think. And the different piles of money that you have, those different buckets, depending on what you do with those, is a question of whether or not Uncle Sam gets a chunk of that money, or do you bypass Uncle Sam and let somebody else have 100% of it where there's no tax implications. And so it's totally changed the way that I'm thinking of where my estate goes. So for us, there will be a monthly part of this that we contribute to the generosity campaign, and then there will be a legacy gift that will be left from our estate to Huffman Baptist Church whenever we pass away, so that the work that we're doing together now doesn't stop down the road. It continues, and we continue to have a part in that. So thanks for reminding me of that. Other questions? Y'all, this is an exciting time. I mean, and who would have thought 4 or 5 years ago that we would be at this point? That we're not just planning our own funeral as a church or existing in our nursing home as a church, but we are actually vibrant and there's a future out there and God's doing stuff and we get to be a part of it. It's an exciting time. So what will happen over the next few weeks is, number one, we know we have some church members who are not able to be a part of Sunday or today. So this will go up on the website on Sunday afternoon. The link to it will be sent out in the email that goes out on Sunday. We'll continue with the 40 days of prayer. We've got 2 more Sundays setting up to Commitment Sunday. Then we will have Commitment Sunday, 9 o'clock that morning. We'll have a breakfast, fellowship breakfast in here. So come early on that Sunday morning, the 8th of October, and fellowship breakfast. Then you'll go to your Sunday school classes, unless you want your Sunday school class to continue to just hang out in fellowship. We've kind of given you that option. So 9 o'clock, then 9:30 Sunday school, 10:30 the worship service, and in the worship service is where we will make our commitments. We'll receive the commitment cards. Those will be available to you on that morning when you come in. So you'll already have prayed through and said, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking. We'll send out a sample so you know what it looks like and you're ready then to come in and do your commitment cards on that Sunday morning and submit those. All right?
Tell them about how we're interacting with banks.
So you may have noticed that the only thing we talked about was the east side of the campus. We did not say anything about the west side with the exception of the entrance to the children's building. Banks Academy right now, this year, as of right now, they have 130 students. Their goal is to have 175 students next year. Their goal within the next 5 years is to have 400 or 500 students, grades K through 12. For them to do that, they're going to have to move into the 3rd floor of the E building. Well, to move into the 3rd floor of the E building, y'all have been up there before, you know those rooms are not very conducive to anything other than playing hide and seek. Yeah, that's right. So that space will need to be reconfigured. The HVAC system in the E building will have to be replaced. Right now, there's no air conditioning or heating on the 3rd floor because we have cannibalized that unit to keep the other 2 units running. And parts are not available for that equipment. So Banks Academy will have to do that themselves. They will bear that expense. We've already had conversations, Bill's had conversation with the chairman of their board and with others in their leadership. So for them, they will tap into their donor base in order to do that. To make that possible, we are in the process of doing a new memorandum of understanding that basically commits us to each other for 10 years. So they can go to and then it's basically renewable every year after that, so that when we're all no longer here, when current bank's leadership is no longer here, that relationship is already in place. They can then feel confident of going to their donors and raising money to renovate space that they technically don't own. Does that make sense? If they do that, in fact, probably within the next 2 years, they're already larger than what our gym will accommodate for what they need. Even last year at basketball games, it was standing room only. And so for them to continue to grow, they're going to need a new gym. And we've kind of already thought through and planted some seeds in their mind of what that would look like, of them coming off kind of behind and to the side in that kind of like where the tennis court area is, of adding onto the existing gym a larger, what would become their high school gym. Then our existing gym would become practice gym, middle school gym. We would then reclaim the rest of that building because they would build offices and locker rooms and all of the things that they needed in the building that they built. They have the ability to go after that kind of money. And so they will be able to do that. So looks like the things that we're putting in place now have the opportunity to continue in place for many, many, many years to come. From generation to generation. Generations yet to be born.
That become Huffman property then?
What's that?
That become Huffman Baptist property?
Well, technically it would. Technically, if, for instance, he said, would that become Huffman property? It's because it's sitting on our property. Yes, if Banks Academy ceased to exist, then we've got another building.
But if we cease
to exist, then the church decides what to do with that. Which more than likely, if the school is growing and the church at some point in the future does end up no longer existing, then probably this property would be, I don't want to speak for, I don't plan on that happening while I'm here. So I don't want to speak for who's going to be here in the future, but probably at that point, the property would be deeded over to Banks Academy. Would be my guess. So long as they were mission true. Yes, sir.
Pastor, I think it's a good time to remember the first Saturday of each month. And it's at 9:30, I believe,
Nine.
9 o'clock. Which reminds me, it's been a couple of months since I've been here, and I need to be back on Saturday. Dan's heard me say I need to be here this month, and it didn't happen. But it would be beneficial to any of our membership to come to this prayer.
And we've had several. We've had Bessie's been, Pat's been, Reginald Gardner's been, Danny's been. Danny's had to slip out. Bill and I are there. At least one of us every time, if not both of us. I'm trying to think. We've had a couple more that have been as well. But very, very beneficial. Harry's been, Richard and Susie have been, Scott and Carrie have been. But it's just a time of coming together to pray for unity in our city, for revival in our city, and it truly is a prayer meeting. If you're coming expecting something else, it's not that. It is truly a prayer meeting. We have prayed. Maxine, you've been, haven't you? I think I've seen you at one of them.
Is that open to the community too?
Yes.
It is, and we have started announcing it to the neighborhood association so that they know. It's probably going to take multiple announcements before we start getting anybody showing up, but yeah.
It's exciting.
It is.
Many of us don't buy green bananas, so that came from him just the other day. We won't get to see some of this.
Well, let me see if I can put this delicately. If you're at the stage of life where you're not buying green bananas, go ahead and make a 3-year commitment, and then also do an estate gift.
I thought it was very exciting when the president of the community association was excited to hear about the Welcome Center. And I think he may have briefly mentioned it, but just the fact that he was like, oh man, this would be a great place to come.
Yeah, we walked Ted Deborah through about a month or so ago, shortly after everything happened. And we just kind of shared with him some of our ideas, some of our thoughts of how we might partner with the community even more going forward. And I shared this on Sunday morning. We had 2 or 3 of our library ladies here. That library could be a tremendous resource for our community. And for so long, churches that had things like that said, well, that's ours. You got to be a member to check out a book, because we're not sure. You may not bring it back. Can I tell you something? There are church members who don't bring books back. I'll tell y'all a story about my wife at some point when I'm not on camera. But think about that. For us to open up the library as a community resource, we can do children's reading programs during the summer that benefit children in the neighborhood. We could have where neighborhood people could come and check out books. I mean, there are all kinds of opportunities for us to use the space that God has given us as a way to bless the community, which then in turn becomes a blessing for the church and builds the kingdom. Because it's all about relationships. Yes, ma'am.
What is the timeline? I know it has to be loose at this point, but what is the timeline for being able to do this so that it would be presentable to those who are coming in from outside?
We hope to have a better idea in the next few days. Bill had a conversation last night with the adjuster with the insurance company, and then a conversation with the contractor, I think, tomorrow coming up. So we hope to have some more information pretty soon.
But you said the 275 is what we have to work with. It doesn't sound like to me that's going to take care of all this. Or is it?
I think by the time we get, because 275 is not going to be max, there'll be more that the insurance company owes us. For instance, that does not include contents. Contents is not going to be huge, but it is going to be a few $1,000s added to that. I don't think that figure included the removal and replacing of the tile out here, because that was a decision that was made after the initial report went in. So we'll know more after Bill gets his eyes on the latest report to see kind of where we're going to be on the construction side. And then our contractor will also then get to negotiate with, no, this is, you say it's going to cost this, I say it's going to cost this. And if he's our contractor, what he says it's going to cost is what they actually owe us. So that's where he gets to have fun. He loves squeezing juice out of the insurance companies.
Can you reveal the contractor?
I don't know the name of the company. It's a guy that he's a friend of Bill's. He has the national contract for Service Master. His construction company is their person, which we use Serve Pro on the mitigation side. We're going to go in a different direction on the rebuild side. He's a guy that's looking to help us. He's like, I have access. We were talking about replacing all the doors on the first floor so that there's a consistency, throughout the room, the building. And he's like, I got a source for doors where we took some doors out of a place and they're sitting in a warehouse and there's probably enough doors to match everything that you've got here, and that probably won't cost you anything.
Is he going to be your architect? Or do we have?
I'm not. You would know the answer to that question better than I, since we're not really constructing. Well, I know we'll have to have a permit.
So you're going to have to have drawings by an architect.
Well, it's just like what Serve Pro have done. They've got those type people that's on their team to get all the permitting they need to get.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If he had access.
I'm assuming so.
Yes. Good question.
If not, we know a good architect.
Is any of the money that we are getting from the sale of the property, does that figure into this at all?
No. That figures into replacing our reserves so we can continue to operate at the level that we are until our regular giving catches up to where our spending is. I think I mentioned this Sunday morning, but 3 years ago when we entered into this deficit spending, we kind of looked at a 5-year window of on-ramp for us to kind of get to where we had results coming in. And we'd said that in about 3 years we're going to evaluate, can we continue to do this based on are we having results. We started seeing the results this past year. What we did not anticipate was God moving in the way that He has with us opening up these two buildings for use by Banks Academy. And which meant we spent more of our reserves than just what we had planned to spend from a budget standpoint, because we had to replace units, we had to fix units. And so for us to continue for the next 2 years or so to get to where we think we need to be, well, we will need that money. That's what we had counted on that money for from the beginning. That's why we decided to sell that piece of property, was to give us operating cushion for a couple of years. By the way, it's kind of in our budget preparation, we've kind of dived into the numbers in terms of facility maintenance and utility usage since Banks Academy came onto our campus a little over 12 months ago. So in that first year, looking at before Banks, after Banks, our facility expenditures increased by $106,000. That's utilities and maintenance, $106,000. Banks Academy has reimbursed us over that same time period $108,000. So, and they put in the gym floor at their expense. So far that's and their reimbursement to the church has just increased from $7,600 a month to $10,400 a month. If they get to their goal for next year of 175 students, it'll be about $14,500 a month. And there's going to come a point where their reimbursement to us, the expenses are not going up exponentially in line with what that is, because you're not really going to use more HVAC, more heating and cooling, more electricity, more gas. Water, yeah, we figured out kids use a lot of water. They use a lot of water. Percentage-wise, our water bill has increased greater than anything else. But even with that, the Banks Academy has covered the increased expense since they've come on. So I thought that was a pretty good thing to find out. So there will come a point where, and we talked about this in finance team meeting, that we will be able to take a portion of what Banks Academy is reimbursing us and what our other ministry partners are reimbursing us and put it into kind of an escrow account for future maintenance, because there is wear and tear on the buildings that we're not given wear and tear on the E-building. We don't use the E-building, but they do. And so it kind of put us in a position to where when we have a need to do maintenance, we've got the money sitting there that then frees up the money that we have given for improvements on space that we're actually using. Anything else? Thank y'all for being here. Let me pray for us. Father, we are thankful that you have brought us to this moment. We're thankful for the responsibility and the opportunity that you placed before us. God, I thank you for a church that has been willing to move forward at every step. God, as we continue in this process, Father, would you just reveal to us what you would have us to do? In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks.